Welcome to the Gratitude Podcast on www.georgianbenta.com, where you'll hear a new story each week that will inspire more gratitude in your own life. Our mission is to inspire 100,000 people to discover how to feel gratitude and live a happy life through the amazing life stories of our successful guests and their actionable tips. And now, the host of our podcast, Georgian Benta.
Hi, Gratitude Seeker. Welcome to episode 100 of the Gratitude Podcast. This is not going to be an interview episode, but I will share with you what are the top 5 episodes overall, and also the top 5 episodes from the first 50 episodes of the Gratitude Podcast. I'm doing this because many of the listeners of the Gratitude Podcast have been listening in the past 5 or 6 months. And since the podcast grew so much in these months, of course, the new episodes got a lot of downloads, and it's only fair to feature the first 50 episodes as well, at least the best, the most popular episodes from the first 50 interviews that I did on the Gratitude Podcast. So here are the top 5 most popular interviews on the Gratitude Podcast. Number 1 is actually the number 1 episode that has been released. It's with Merle Hersheyback, and it's called Getting Over Grief and Unhealthy Eating Habits Using Gratitude. Merle is an author, and more importantly, an amazing human being. She has had difficulties with binge eating. She lost her son. But in spite of all of the bad experiences that she had in her life, she's very authentic, very entertaining, and you will see that the interview with her is very, very refreshing. She talks about her journey from being the kind of person that cringes or actually gets sick when she hears about gratitude to a person that practices, that embraces gratitude and enjoys its benefits each and every day. Here's a snippet from the interview that I'm sure that you will enjoy.
I was the kind of person that was always smiling and happy, but inside I was crying and I was gasping for air. I mean, I was dying inside and nobody knew that. So how could I feel grateful when that's what was really going on and the world only saw, oh, I'm great, thank you very much. So it took me a long time to work through the personal issues and the personal growth and the inner work. And then when I get into the other side, wow, I feel grateful for so much now. I mean, there isn't a day that goes by that I don't say, thank you, God. And when I do affirmations, in fact, that's the way I start them. I go, thank you. And let's say, thank you for bringing me blah, blah, blah. So it starts out with as if it already happened. Thank you, God, for blah, blah, whatever. So I have gratitude in my life all the time now. But boy, it took a while to get there.
Amazing, isn't it? This is interview episode number 1. Unfortunately, you can't find it on Apple Podcasts or iTunes because they only host 300 episodes, but you can find it on Castbox, for instance, whether you use the online version or the app, or on Spotify. It's usually the episode that people listen to when they want to get an idea on how the Gratitude Podcast is, if it's for them, if it's something that gives them value, if it's worth their time. And fortunately, it's really a great episode. The second best or most popular episode is the one that I did with Julie Santiago. It's called Awaken to the Gratitude and Uncover Your Emotional Prosperity. It's interview 88, and you can find it on iTunes, Apple Podcasts, and everywhere. Julie has had academic success, professional success, but she wasn't fulfilled. She shares with us her breakthrough moment and how gratitude changed her life. Once again, this is episode 88, Awaken to the Gratitude and Uncover Your Emotional Prosperity with Julie Santiago. On the third place, we have Mike Schlossberg, a politician, a state representative in Pennsylvania, that talks openly about his depression and also does a whole lot of work to help people with their mental health. To be more exact, when we talked, he was working on a law to help women with postpartum depression, which I think it's so powerful because, as you might know, our parents' emotions have a huge impact on us as children, especially at such a young age. So if you want to find out more about Mike, about his story, you can listen to episode number 93, Living a Seemingly Perfect Life but Struggling with Depression and Anxiety. I gave the episode this name because so many people seem to have the perfect life and yet still they are struggling with anxiety, with depression, with stress. And even Mike seems to be like someone that's really okay, really happy. But the fact that we have, or we seem to have a perfect life doesn't mean that we won't face anxiety, stress, or depression. I love his perspective on this. And if you haven't already listened to the interview, I definitely recommend it. Once again, that's interview number 93, Living a Seemingly Perfect Life but Struggling with Depression and Anxiety with Mike Schlossberg. The fourth most popular episode is called Bouncing Back from Setbacks and Preventing Mental Health Issues Through Gratitude. I've done this interview with a male nurse from Singapore by the name of Rayson Chu. He works at the Institute of Mental Health in Singapore, and the story of how he became a male nurse is really emotional and inspiring at the same time. With his mom suffering from schizophrenia, he still manages to be grateful. And not only that, but also he made a mission out of inspiring many people with his story and with his example. He also has some really interesting insights on mental health and gratitude, actually on how we can use gratitude to prevent mental health issues. Once again, that's episode number 87, Bouncing Back from Setbacks and Preventing Mental Health Issues Through Gratitude with Rayson Chu. The fifth most popular episode is the one with Hal Elrod. There is a really high probability that you've heard about the Miracle Morning. In our interview, we talk about the Miracle Morning and how we can integrate gratitude in the Miracle Morning so that we will get even more out of our day-to-day lives, starting with some good habits in the morning. The episode number is 91, the Miracle Morning interview with Hal Elrod. Now, as I mentioned in the beginning, you might have noticed that aside from the first episode, the other four are 88, 93, 87, and 91. But I think it's fair to have a top 5 episodes from the first 50 as well. Unfortunately, you won't find them on Apple Podcasts, so look for them on castbox.fm or on Spotify, or wherever you're listening actually, unless you're listening on iTunes or Apple Podcasts. So the most popular episode from the first 50 episodes of the Gratitude Podcast is a heartfelt talk about gratitude, life, and business with George Kao. On the episode, he shared how not finding a job led him to his true calling. We talked about how a few moments of gratitude can change what's going to happen next in our lives, and many stories that George shared with an open heart to inspire you. The second place goes to episode 17, To Appreciate Life, Start With Yourself First. Jenny Stromgren. This is a really popular episode, even though Jenny isn't as well known as other people that I have had on the podcast. Jenny is a podcaster friend of mine. She's from Sweden, but she has been living in Australia for many, many years now. She shares with us a story from her first weeks in Australia, but she tells the story so beautifully that you feel you are there, that you actually live the same kind of enthusiasm, gratitude, and freedom that she did in those first weeks in Australia. As you can imagine, it's quite a big contrast coming from a country from Northern Europe, where it's really cold, and especially in the winter, the nights are pretty long. You don't see much sun. Actually, in parts of Sweden, you only get about 3 or 4 hours of sun each day in the winter. And then there's Australia, where it feels like summer all year long. But even there, gratitude plays an important role. And Jenny shares her experience with us on episode 17, To Appreciate Life, Start With Yourself First. The third most popular episode on the Gratitude podcast in the first 50 episodes is called The More Value You Find in Yourself, the more appreciative you are of your life and of everyone else. The title is actually a quote from the interview itself. It's by Rino Soriano, a holistic radiant health coach and author with Italian origins. He was so passionate during the interview. I didn't even get to ask all of the questions that I wanted to ask him, because I really felt that he has a message and he put it out there in a very powerful and inspiring way. He talks a lot about health, especially in the States, and how that leads either to joy or to depression, to sickness, and to other situations that don't lead us on a path to more gratitude, unfortunately. But other than that, he is very positive, very optimistic, and very motivating, and I'm sure that his passion will definitely move you. The fourth most popular interview from the first 50 is interview number 10, Receiving Who We Are and Being Grateful for Ourselves, with Penelope Elfin. She shared the story of the miracle that got her back on her feet after 8 years of not being able to walk. She also shares how in any adversity there is something that we can learn from with enough distance from it. How you need to know the nitty-gritty from your childhood to create new neural pathways for the positive, and the positive impact that accepting and appreciating ourselves can have in our life. When we did the interview, Penelope was in her house in Australia, overseeing the ocean, a beautiful place with great energy and a great perspective, don't you think? You will also be able to enjoy a little bit of that if you listen to episode 10. And now for the fifth most popular episode from the first 50, episode 11, How Life Shifts When You Choose to Count Your Blessings, with Hollywood's PhD. We talked about the challenging life that she had and how things shifted once she chose to count her blessings, how life is neither good nor bad, and how our reaction is everything that matters, and how raw emotion only lasts for 90 seconds, and what happens from there on. Once again, this is episode 11 with doctor and master coach with 35 years of experience, Holly Woods. Aside from these popular episodes, I have interviewed some amazing celebrities. Brother David Steindl-Rast on episode 85 about the gratefulness of life. He is the monk with the popular TED Talk about gratitude, an amazing human being. I've also interviewed JP Sears, a spiritual comedian, on episode 74, appreciating our weirdness and expanding beyond our limits with gratitude. This was, in my opinion, a really, really good episode. Another celebrity that I've interviewed is Sean Stevenson, the 3-foot giant. He is funny, he is charismatic, and he was able to accomplish amazing things in his life in spite of his physical condition. And even more so, he is able to be grateful. You can listen to the episode 65, How to Choose Gratitude When Life Seems Unfair. Also, at the beginning of the year, I've interviewed Leo Babauta. He's the founder of Zen Habits, and we talked about creating positive habits to reach our goals for this year. But of course, the most important habit that we talked about was the habit of being grateful. You can listen to episode 73 with Leo Babauta. In these past 2 years, I've interviewed amazing people. Some are not that well known, but their lives and their stories are just incredible. Of course, I won't stop here. I will continue to interview people on the Gratitude Podcast for you, the Gratitude Seeker. I actually have many interviews that have been recorded but have not been published yet. I am really inspired by them, and I'm sure that you will be as well. So to make sure that you will receive them, please subscribe right now. And until next week, look for the interviews that seemed more interesting for you from the description that I made for each of them. And don't forget to keep seeking gratitude. Thank you so much for listening and for all of your support along the way. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you.